Final Fantasy X was a game I heard so much about. Everyone was always like, this is the best Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy X is my favorite game of all time. How have you not played Final Fantasy X? Now, this game was always on my radar, but it's hilarious. As many JRPGs as I've played and how much I love the genre, I have not played much Final Fantasy. I've only played the 7 remake and then bits of the others. So today I'm going to take you into my journey of my first time playing Final Fantasy X and kind of getting into the series. Now, there's so many things I loved about this game, and I'm going to go into all detail. Now, the things I didn't enjoy pretty much stopped it from being a perfect experience, but that's okay. It's an experience I'm always going to remember, and my journey with this game brings a warm feeling to my heart. Before I could get into anything, I have to talk about the intro. Intros to JRPGs are extremely important. It's the way you hook the player and bring them into your story. Now, a lot of JRPGs have this problem. The intros are so sluggish. You ever hear someone say, don't worry, this game is amazing, but just give it a little bit? That's a huge problem in my opinion, because there's a way to hook the player instantly. Final Fantasy X did this perfectly. You start out in this really cool looking city that almost makes you wonder what is beyond these giant buildings. And you're a sports player for this game called Blitzball, and you're basically a star. And that's all you know right from the get-go. And the next thing you know, there's tsunamis, there's whales, there's beautiful islands, there's balls. Blitzball! Final Fantasy X did such a good job at making me curious of the world it's trying to immerse me into. You don't know what is going on, and either does Titus. You're dropped out of nowhere, seemingly out of time, into the future, and now you're on this beautiful island meeting new friends and exploring. It really brings a sense of immersion, and I can't explain how much this intro hooked me. I really enjoyed it, and I almost want to go back and play the intro itself multiple times. For once in my reviews, I'm going to go into the story and characters first, and then we'll get into the combat system. Usually I'm always with the combat system first, but one thing that surprised me about this game was its characters. I loved the cast so much in this game, and I loved Titus, Titus, Wheatus, I don't know which one it is. I call him Titus, because when I played Kingdom Hearts 1 as a kid, that's what I heard. But this game has a very good protagonist. Titus is really cool. I love his enthusiastic personality. He's kind of cocky at times, and some people might think he's stupid or arrogant. But the thing about him is he has that personality where he's just not going to give up, and if people are being rude to him or trying to take down his goals, he's just going to clap back, and kind of in a sarcastic way. I really loved his personality. Imagine you're a kid with daddy issues and you're being sent through a portal that is space and time, and you don't know where the hell you are, and you're meeting all new people. I think the character was played perfectly in that regard. The cast he meets along the way, Auron, Wakka, Lulu, Kamari, everybody is so fantastic, and each of their personalities shined. Yuna in particular, I loved as the heroine. I'm a sucker for love stories, so instantly when him and Yuna started flirting, I was hooked. I really wanted to see where their story ends, and the fact that everyone was kind of roasting Titus, saying, you know, you can't talk to the summoner.
Stay away from the summoner!
It made me really want to see them get together, and that journey was really cool to see in itself. Titus grow, and then Yuna grow in her own way, and then them grow together. Yuna also had a very good strength of will. She wanted to find her own way and do what's best for the world, and she was just trying to find her way to do that. The story in itself, where you're being lost in this different time period and there's this giant monster that goes and basically wipes out civilization because he's trying to find Titus, which then ends up being your father. The whole story is so interesting. So I was basically entertained the entirety of the time, which is hard to do sometimes for me. Sometimes stories lose me at points and I almost fall asleep. So this was really cool to just be entertained the entirety of the time. The game's soundtrack was also immaculate. You could see me dancing to it the whole time. I'm actually going to leave the link to the playlist in the description for my first playthrough that I did on Twitch. If you want to see my reactions to any part of this game, the episodes will be there. But the soundtrack brought immersion to every area it was trying to do. The sad scenes, they were perfectly executed, and the battle themes and boss themes, I was just totally into. I really loved the soundtrack. Now onto the combat system, which I enjoyed thoroughly. The combat is traditional turn-based, and the one thing I want to highlight is the entirety of the game, you feel strong. The summons, your abilities, stuff like Hastaga, You are almost overpowered, but the enemies and bosses themselves are super strong as well, which require you to do a lot of thinking and strategizing. This game's combat was fantastic. I really enjoyed that balance, and it made stuff like the summons not be overpowered, but also make you feel really powerful. I know this game you could get extremely overpowered in post-game and basically one-shot stuff, but through the story sections, the balance was very good, provided a challenge, but you also felt really strong the whole time. Now let's also talk about the sphere grid. Oh my lord. This is one of my favorite skill tree systems I've ever done. I love being able to go your own teammate routes. There's a whole bunch of different spheres you could add, like HP and strength, that you could put into little slots that you originally had no nodes. I loved so much of the customization with it. The way you can pretty much do different builds each playthrough brings a lot of replayability. I pretty much love going into the sphere grid every time. Oddly, you do not grow levels in this game like traditional JRPGs, and the weapons you get also don't have stats tied to them. You basically put your own abilities on them, and the weapons are good based on the abilities that are equipped to them, and the sphere grid is how you upgrade all your stats for your characters. I actually really liked this because it threw me off a little bit. I had to learn a couple different new systems, but it all worked out really well. There wasn't anything off balance because of this stuff. I thought mechanics like being able to swap teammates and it not counting as a turn, and stuff like the overdrives and them using a lot of button inputs and fun things like that almost felt like Mario Party at times. Everything about that was really fun and brought a lot of spice to the turn-based system. The animations for its time were also fantastic. Like, the camera angles it would do every time you get a kill were so great. They would do a battle quote whenever you get the kill, and the overdrives had their own certain camera angles they would do. They made the old battles feel really cinematic for its time, and man, I loved it. Even if you didn't go weird routes on the sphere grid, every character filled their role perfectly. I kinda liked how you got to use Auron to pierce in the beginning, and then Waka to hit faraway enemies, and then Lulu to do elemental damage. It was fun. It made you use your whole entire team, and it was a little bit annoying how you had to swap in the teammates to gain XP, but it kept me swapping through my team the whole time, and I won't lie, for a first playthrough, I found it really fun. I know a lot of people complained about it, but hey, I liked swapping in my teammates like an old Pokemon game or something. There's also plenty of wacky, interesting systems to spice up the turn-based gameplay, like Riku's Mix Overdrive. There's so many outcomes that could do, and Waka's Overdrive, where you could choose different elements in your elemental reel. There's so many different things you could do, like too many different things with the buffs, the debuffs. There's a lot of strategizing you could do in this game. Plenty of stuff to choose from for turn-based veterans. Can we also talk about how the Blitz Ball is the strongest weapon in this entire game? Now we get on to my only negative of the game. The bosses were the majority really fun to fight. Mountain Seymour provided an extremely fun challenge that was nice to overcome. The dragon on the ship was super cool. Most of them were great, but some of them had mechanics that I just was not fond of. There were a couple mechanics that drove me insane. One of them was healing. Some of the bosses extended their fights for so long because they would heal over and over again, and you had to figure out how to stop them or something like that. That just made the fight an hour and a half, and some of them I weren't even losing on. I would just fight for so long. So that was really not fun. And then at other times, they would do things like stone one of my teammates and break them, or just shoot them out of the map so that I'm stuck with only 2 party members. Now, I get it, there's ways to avoid that, but when that would happen, it is so discouraging when you're fighting a boss for 30 minutes and Waka just gets shot out of the map. I'd rather just load up my save data and retry the boss and count it as an L than sit there and double the length of the fight because I lost one of my teammates. It's not a fun mechanic at all. I think it's really stupid for a challenge. And then when I got to the end game boss rush, the amazing Seymour final fight with the amazing OST and everything, it was over in a flash. I'm not sure how my team whomped him so hard, but it was way too easy. And then when I got onto Jet, he was not challenging in the way I was hoping he would be. He was healing over and over, and then by the end, when I was just about to get him, he would do some weird super move and one-shot my team, and before then, I was having no issues the entire fight. So it was just like, oh, okay, I guess that happened moment. And then when I beat him, it just didn't feel very good. And then I was waiting for another boss, like the true final boss, and it ended up being a jellyfish. I get it. It's supposed to be like the brain of Sin, and you're inside Sin, and it's more of a triumphant story fight. But the fact that there is a way for you to come back to life every time, like you could not lose the fight, and aesthetically it just wasn't that cool to me, left a lot more to be desired gameplay-wise at the end portion of the game. The story was amazing, the ending portion was fantastic, but gameplay-wise, I really wanted more out of that end section, especially for Seymour. Overall, though, thinking back, I really loved the ending, and it wrapped up the story beautifully. It made me really excited to go into X2. I want to see what happens with Titus and Yuna. My boy can't just disappear like that. But man, it was a crazy ending, story-wise. Now, I want to go into a couple little things about the game. The mini-games were honestly really cool. I know a lot of them are annoying, but like the Chocobo race was so much fun, and Blitzball in itself had so many mechanics. There was a lot of things that just spice up the gameplay in this game, and I really appreciate that. Even the stupid things like the butterflies. Stuff like that could really enhance immersion in these games, and I had a lot of fun with them. Especially getting the 0-second challenge of the Chocobo race. That was a fun stream. Being able to go around and capture all the enemies and put them in a monster coliseum is just super cool. There's a lot of super bosses, and the post game is thriving. It keeps you playing for hours upon hours, and 100% completion is pretty crazy. Especially getting that big ass sphere grid, like man, that's gonna be a challenge. Getting all the Ultima weapons is also really fun. So there's a lot to do once the game is actually completed, which I really love. There's secrets all around, and I love the little details. Like throughout the game, if you talk to a whole bunch of different NPCs, you could sometimes challenge another summoner. Most of them would hand you items to help you out, have special dialogue. There's details everywhere, and there's a lot of old game secrets, like go back to this area, do this weird thing, and you get this item. I really love that stuff. It brings you back to a good time. The puzzles in this game were actually kind of fun. I usually don't like puzzles at all in JRPGs, but I had some fun with these, so I don't mind them. Except one time I walked out of the room in the ice puzzle, and then when I walked back in, the puzzle was reset. They really should have had some quality of life improvements for the remaster. Also being able to skip cutscenes, please. Those were kind of L's in my opinion, that they didn't update the game at all. I can't wait to go try all the Dark Aeons and the rest of the super bosses and Omega Dungeon. There's so much fun to this game, and when I want to do all the post-game and get the completion stuff, you know I really enjoy the game. This journey was crazy. This felt like an old nostalgic PS2 game, except I played it now. When I think back on it, it's so fondly. So Final Fantasy X was a journey, if I say so, and I can't wait to play 10-2. There was so much to the game that I thought they did well, and it's honestly ahead of its time in many different ways, and that was the biggest thing to me. There was a lot of design decisions where I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. Like the airship being able to go everywhere, swapping in teammates and it not taking a turn, things like the sphere grid. It all worked, and none of it was super unbalanced, which I really appreciated. Well guys, that was my review of Final Fantasy X and basically my entire journey. Once again, if you want to see the journey, the episodes will be in the playlist down below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, definitely make sure to like and subscribe to show me you enjoyed. Leave me a comment of what you think of my opinions. Did you think I was right in most of the areas? What did you think of my journey? Now, the game was damn near perfect. I don't really do number scores. I just basically give my impressions and what I think of the game. So it was damn near a perfect experience, and I can't wait to see more of their adventure.